Trump's full statement shocks the world. A show of strength or a sign of weakness? Here is the complete statement in this video.
So more on this with Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen. He was inside the room for the president's address, and get your first reaction here. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Dana.
So tell us a little bit about that moment.
Well, it was an honor to be in the room and watch that address. You and I have been in a few of those in the past, but President Trump does it like nobody else does. And the reality is, he did exactly what a commander-in-chief is supposed to do during a time of war. He explained to the American people what our objectives are. He reported on our progress in achieving those objectives, and he laid out the path forward for how we bring this mission to a completion. It's exactly what a president should do, and he does it really well. This is a tool that he doesn't use all that much. He's probably the greatest ad-libber who's ever been in the Oval Office, and he riffs like nobody else does. But sometimes sitting down and taking the time to prepare a speech, to think it through, to lay out a clear message to the American people and ask the American people for their support is the right thing to do, and he did it brilliantly last night.
There was some reporting that I know the White House press secretary has pushed back on that said that the president was really going to take it to NATO. In fact, I think he said that as well. He didn't end up doing that in the speech. Any insight into why?
Well, first of all, the reporting is that he's going to blast NATO and announce pulling out of the mission, and then he doesn't do that, and then the critics say, "Oh, there was nothing new in the speech." No matter what Donald Trump does, somebody's going to be unhappy with it. I mean, look, he is very right to be upset with NATO. We never asked our allies to send planes to fly alongside ours in bombing Iran, but we did ask them to let us use our bases in Europe that we spend billions of dollars each year. Overfly their territory, and many of the NATO allies have not done that, and they're dragging their heels on helping us open the Strait of Hormuz. They're the ones dependent on the Strait of Hormuz, not us, for energy, for natural gas, for jet fuel, and so he's right to demand that they play a role in it.
Here is some Democrats, as you said. Maybe this is always going to be their response, no matter what President Trump said, but anyway, let's listen to what they had to say after.
No American is going to bed tonight with a more clear picture of what the end game is and when this is going to wrap up.
It was a pretty pathetic address that just showed how weak and clueless he is. I mean, it would be almost comical if the stakes were not so high.
Every single time President Trump gets involved, things get worse for the American people. So he had no discussion of why we got into this war, what we hope to achieve, or how we're going to get out of this war.
And they also keep pointing their finger to gas prices, which, of course, it's kind of interesting. I'm old enough to remember the Biden administration and gas prices at that point. But regardless, there is politics involved here now. How will the Republicans manage that?
Well, first of all, that quote from Mikey Sherrill, he literally did what she said he didn't do. He reported on the objectives, he reported on the progress, and he explained the way forward to bring it to an end in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Two, if we can't stand a few weeks of high gas prices in order to eliminate the threat of an Iranian nuclear program with missiles able to reach Europe and eventually the United States, we're no longer a superpower. And the reality is, what Donald Trump is doing is he is showing that we are, in fact, a superpower. And quite frankly, the combination of Israel and the United States taking on this regime, this is an ultra power. This is the greatest demonstration of air power in the history of the world. We are absolutely achieving all of our objectives. This will go down as one of the greatest military campaigns in the history of our country. And Iran will never again be able to threaten the world with nuclear weapons. And that is an achievement for the ages.
And the president also pointing out that the regime, he said, killed 45,000 of its own people. So, well, happy
That's
Easter weekend to you, Mark. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Dana.
So now the president also saying the attacks will increase in the coming weeks. Want to bring in General Keith Kellogg, former commander of the U.S. Army's elite 82nd Airborne Division. And General, good to have you back here. There's 1,000 pounds, as the president said, of nuclear dust still in Iran. Here's how he addressed that last night.
The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none.
General, from a military perspective, then, what comes next after what we've just seen for the past 32 days?
Yeah, Bill, thanks for having me. Look, let's give full credit to President Trump. It took guts to do what he has done. He's the only president who was willing to do it. I don't trust a theocratic regime that chants death to America to actually do something honest and keep the enriched uranium out of their hands or develop a nuclear weapon. I just don't. It's a matter of trust. So I would like to get it out of there. I would like for them to give it to the IAEA or somebody like that. They don't have to give it to us, but just get it out of Iran.
Can we?
So they cannot touch it. Can you do it? Sure, you can do it. It's high risk. You can go in there and do it with special operations units to go into the tunnels and get it out of there. We have the capability to do that. When I say risk, that means you put boots on the ground to do something like that. But we have proven that our military is without question the best in the world, and it can do things that most of us could not believe could be happening. And I give them full credit for that. But as long as they've got a theocratic regime, we don't know who's really in charge. Currently, there's a guy named Vahidi in charge, but Pezeshkian, who's the president, really doesn't have much say. And I would like to see that regime changed out, only because as long as you've got a theocratic regime, I would prefer the mullahs go back to the mosque instead of running the government. But as long as they've got that under their control, regardless of what they say, I don't trust them. And I'd like to get it out of there. Give it to somebody neutral. Give it to Switzerland or give it to the IAEA, but just get it out of there.
So the nuclear material is one issue. Strait of Hormuz is another. How do you see that developing now, General?
Well, I think the president's right. I mean, this is not our game. The European nations and some of the Pacific nations need to step up and do that as well. I've always said, and I believe that I would like to take their oil, take their command and control of their oil, like taking Karg Island, or put forces on the ground to control the strait. You could do that by taking Bandar Abbas. Years ago, we've been doing this for years. When I commanded the Army's 82nd, one of our game plans, one of the plans to execute, was in fact taking Bandar Abbas. You can do that by maintaining and clearing the straits. They should have freedom of navigation. It's a global issue, and I'm really disappointed the European allies have not stepped up to it. Look, I'm one of those guys right now, just tell them, look, with NATO right now, then execute Article 13. Article 13 is you give a year's notice that we're out of this. We're going to develop a new security apparatus. NATO doesn't count anymore. If they're not going to allow us to use the bases that we've developed and paid for and worked with, then they're not an alliance anymore. They're not friends
Let me
of ours,
follow up on
and it's
that.
their responsibility.
That's the third area of concern here, and that's what happens with the NATO alliance here. I don't know if it's fractured or not. There's a great piece in the Wall Street Journal, by the way, about the Strait of Hormuz and these rock islands, and the Iranians consider them to be aircraft carriers. And they are armed, not heavily populated at all, but they are right there in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. The Journal writes this: bomb Iran but blow up NATO. It says it would be the height of folly and help Moscow, Tehran, and Beijing. Do you see this being more stretched now than it needs to be, General?
Well, look, I disagree with that. It's not it's a threat of basically moving away from NATO is actually a strength on our part that shows that really we're questioning your capacity in a military capacity to go forward in the future. Poland's doing a great job. Germany's rearming. The Brits haven't done very much at all. The Italians are not doing very much at all. And this is one of those, this is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for the world. And President Trump had the guts to go do something about Iran. Nobody else has been able to do that before. I mean, we talked about it during Trump 1, and we never were able to pull the trigger on it. He has done that. He's sort of like the alpha male of all the world leaders. Give him credit for doing that. And I would take control of those islands. You can do it. That is not a hard thing to do. You've got the 82nd Airborne and the 1st Brigade of the 82nd is forward. You've got special operations people control the land just like the Romans did years ago. You know, I got to give you a historical analogy. You know, for years before the birth of Christ, the Romans and the Carthaginians fought it out for 3 Punic wars. And finally the Romans had enough, and they went to Carthage, and they basically destroyed Carthage, and they basically never had a problem with Carthage again well in the future. This is a time we just need to go in, either occupy the ground, take certain key positions, not go into Iran writ large, but take certain key developmental purpose islands or facilities like Karg Island and control it. We'll control the oil. President Trump said that in 1988. Let's do it now.
Yeah, there are 2 MEUs in the area, too, as well, from the Marine Expeditionary Unit. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, thank you, sir, for coming on today.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
If you found this video informative, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more breaking news from around the world.